Hello, welcome back to the podcast. I am switching it up a little bit today, and we're moving away from the nutrition talk actually to more business stuff, because I get this question all the time, and I have done for years now, in terms of my journey to become a nutritional therapist, a naturopath, and business advice in general. So I thought I would do an episode, and I'm going to combine some questions in here as well that I got on Instagram. I did a little poll yesterday and just gathered a few questions in here, which I'll be covering at the end. So first part, I want to go through exactly what I said, my journey. So why I decided to become a practitioner, where I studied at, and became certified as a nutritional therapist here in the UK, and then additional things that I've done afterwards that have helped me get the knowledge that I have. And yeah, it might be a long one, but if you're listening to this and you obviously are intrigued, I know I used to listen to things like this all the time, because I felt like I wanted to practice. And then when I started hearing more, I was like, yeah, this sounds like it's for me. So maybe you are a practitioner yourself, you're already qualified, maybe you're wanting to do some more training, or maybe you're brand new, and this could even spark some interest for you to look deeper into what it takes to become a practitioner. So starting off, this is just my experience, so this isn't how you have to do it. And there's different courses and other ways to go, but this is what I've done in my experience. So yeah, take everything that I say as not like you have to do this. It's just how I did. So starting off in my childhood and teens, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I always knew that I wanted to help people though. So I thought about being a nurse or a teacher or a social worker or a nursery nurse, just different things like that. But everything was kind of under the same category as healer, carer, etc. So at school, for the last 2 years, we had to choose which form of science that we wanted to go down. If we wanted to do like more biochemistry, physiology, that type of thing, or if we wanted to do more health and social care. I think that's what happened, but yeah, I just don't remember studying things like biochemistry in my last 2 years of school. So instead, I was doing health and social care, and that was really, again, focused on things like nursing, social work, and childcare. And I did enjoy it, and most of my friends did that course as well. So we just had a really good time in all of the lessons. But I then, because I was in that class, I then just went to college to study further in health and social care. And that was a 2 or 3 year course. And I ended up only doing 1 year because I soon realized that it just wasn't what I wanted to do. I didn't really want to be dealing with sick patients in hospital or dealing with blood or vomit or anything like that. I'm pretty squeamish. So I knew though I'd like to learn about health and diet, but I didn't want to go doing the dietitian route and work in a hospital. So things were kind of coming together, but I just still was unclear as to what the options were. I think I maybe thought of being a personal trainer, but I wasn't that into exercise and fitness at the time. I was definitely involved, but more for just my own interests. I don't think I'd want to coach someone in that area, but just shows how everything works out in the end. Because after that first year, the course was actually pretty terrible as well. The lectures were always late. It was in a town, the next town to where I am, but I'd have to get the bus in, and then it was just like peak time traffic. So it would take like all day to actually get there, do the course, and it just wasn't even worth being in the lecture. So I didn't really enjoy that aspect either. I remember one day we had to stay until 5 p.m. even if we'd finished all of our work, or the lecturer hadn't turned up. They keep us in there, which is pretty terrible. But one day we were just playing hangman from like 4 till 5 p.m. and I wanted to get out so I could miss the traffic and be home earlier, so it didn't take me an hour and a half on the bus home. So that was like the final straw. I was thinking, right, I'm not going to do this any longer. So I finished the first year, and then I just knew it wasn't meant to be. And then it was the year after that I went to America. And if you followed my story, you know that that is when my health deteriorated after that trip. So when I got back, I'd had like multiple food poisoning events, exposure to some sort of tick-borne illness. I'd returned back to my home in the UK, which was mouldy. And I'd been on the pill and over-exercising and eating terribly for that entire summer. And then only a few weeks later, because of that experience, and I was just so desperate to get home and eat healthy again, and I realized that what I'm doing physically and what I'm eating is having an effect on my symptoms. My dandruff was getting worse, my acne was getting worse. So I started to connect that food is much more than just energy and fuel and calories and weight related, but it's about the quality of my sleep, my skin, my digestion, everything. And at that point, I couldn't really eat anything without being severely bloated. So within a few weeks, I was looking for a practitioner to help me with my symptoms. And I found someone locally. She was in Manchester, and I wanted to do an in-person one. So her name was Dee, and she did some testing. I was like, I'll get anything that you want, because I was brand new to it. So she put me on all of these different supplements and lab tests, and just my experience with her teaching me about the impacts of gut health, and she found that I had parasites. I was like, wow, my whole world has been opened up. My eyes are open to this naturopathic, holistic way to go, because I'd spent then such a long time at hospitals. I'd dealt with hair loss a few years before, and no one was figuring out why I was shedding a ton of hair. Now I know it was my hormones were off. I had PCOS, my blood sugar was all over the place, again, the mold, so many different things. So pretty quickly, I just knew that it was what I wanted to do as well. So I was researching where to study nutrition, and I didn't even know that this was a job. I thought it was just the dietitian route in working hospitals, working with people with diabetes, putting them on a meal plan. I didn't enjoy that aspect, but I was really curious as to how illnesses develops and the root causes. Like, why did this person have this problem, and then someone else has this other problem? And much more than just the food as well. I was drawn to the course that I eventually enrolled on because it was a more naturopathic approach. It was looking at things like stress and environment to some degree, definitely not as much as I know now, but that's why I went down the nutrition versus dietitian route. I think dietitians are much more praised and recognized in the health world. I don't know if it's different in other countries, but definitely in the UK. And it's a bit more regulated of a term, but I still stand by. I'm so glad that I didn't go to dietitian school or even bother going to university. I never went to university because I just wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and I didn't want to pay tens of thousands of pounds on courses that I wasn't really confident that I wanted to continue with. So with my own health situation, that's a whole different episode. I've done many on them, but that was a process that was going on for years and years and years in the background. But I knew that I wanted to study, and I felt excited again because I'd gotten a little bit lost as to what I wanted to do in life. I was still quite young, I think 19, 20 when I signed up, and I was searching, and there was only 2 courses in the UK that I was considering. One of them was called the Institute of Optimum Nutrition, which was in London, but I think they had an online course. And then the other one was the one that I eventually went on, which is the College of Naturopathic Medicine, which had a place in London, but it also had one in Manchester, which was 30 minutes from where I live. And they did have a full-time course, which was only in London at the time. They had no online courses. I know that that's changed since I graduated. I think the year after I graduated in 2017, they opened up the online courses. I might have done that, but I actually really enjoyed the in-person part because I could meet friends, and I still am in touch with a few of them now who I studied with. And it was just nice to get out and be in this little bubble and do the clinical things in person. So that was a 3-year course, and I chose the part-time option because there wasn't a full-time option in Manchester. Otherwise, I would have done that. And it was 1 weekend a month for 3 years. The first year was biomedicine, and I had to do that because I hadn't done it at college or university. I hadn't studied in any way to be like a physio or anything, so I needed to understand the biochemistry aspect, which is basically what's going on at the cellular level in the body, all the different systems, cardiovascular system, reproductive system. And this first year, it was quite full on. And I had a benefit though, because I'd just come out of studies from college and a few years before high school. So my brain was still pretty fresh and used to the studying aspect, even though I did have severe brain fog at the time throughout my studies. Other people struggled more because they'd been in completely different industries, or they've had years off work and studying because they've been raising children, or they also had health issues. So I was in a pretty privileged position throughout that time, and also because I was living at home. Some people were literally traveling in from like Yorkshire, or one woman was flying in from the Isle of Man every month to do the course. So I really take my hat off to those people. But for me, I enjoyed the whole course just the whole time, and it was just exactly what I wanted to do. It was difficult at times just with the coursework and stuff, but I did do really well with the exams and the coursework, all of that. I struggled a little bit because we had to do some clinical studies as well. So we had biomedicine year 1, and that group of people who signed up was really big. It was like 50 people. And then it really dropped off each year. Some people just couldn't hack it. They changed their mind. They got a refund. So biomedicine was like a real challenge for some people. And then there was only a small group of us that actually got the whole way through to the end in one go. Some people deferred a little bit. But then in nutrition year 1, that's when we started to learn about the stuff I actually wanted to. But it is useful to know about the cardiovascular system and everything, but we don't really need to know about the ventricles or chambers of the heart. I'm not bringing that up in clinical conversation in my day-to-day work. But then in year 1, we learned about things like vitamins and minerals and antioxidants and hormones. And that's when we started to observe clinics in the college. So a qualified practitioner would then take the clinic, and we would sit as students in the back of the room and learn more about that and what questions they were asking or what protocols they were giving them. And then they'd come back a few weeks later and we could see that they've improved or not, what they struggled with. So that was a fun aspect. And then in nutrition year 2, so the final year, that was for me the most enjoyable one, because we started to learn like deeper things then: detoxification, digestive system, microbiome, lab testing. And that's when we as students could see clients. So it was overlooked by a qualified person again, but we had some members of the public come in, but we also swapped friends and families. So that I'd bring in like my mum and dad, and then someone else would bring in their sister, and I'd see their family, they'd see mine. And even though I was a little bit scared and nervous because I was not good at public speaking or being in front of a room of people, doing a consultation, I found that aspect the hardest. I found it really easy to like come up with a plan and figure out what was going on and get everything done in time. Because that experience that we had as well is very different to real life. Like in, I think, 90 minutes, I had to have took a full session, written all of these notes and papers, come up with a plan and fed it back to the person in like an hour and a half, 2 hours. Whereas in real life, I could take like 5 hours before the call to prep, and then take as long as I really want to on the call and afterwards to get the protocol to them. So it's really got you to be time efficient, and some people fail in that aspect, but I quite enjoyed it. And I remember there was 3 clients that you had to see in that final year, and you had to really write reports on them. And one of them, looking back now, I really think he had issues with mold, because his main symptom was chronic sinusitis. And at the time, I think it said things like environment does play a role, but I was thinking more of his job. I think he was a mechanic or something with cars. So I was thinking maybe that was involved, because it's quite bad and he was really struggling. But he also had digestive issues. So I was linking the gut with the sinus problem. And then I also said things like dairy products can be involved if you have an intolerance or sensitivity to dairy. But looking back now, I wish I would have known about mold for him and also for myself, because I was dealing with it at that point. In total, with those 2 years, I had, I think, 200 clinical hours. I think it was 100 hours per year. And this really set this course apart from other ones. I don't know if things have changed. So this was 2017 that I qualified, so 2014 when I signed up. But I just knew right away from the open day that I went to and from what I'd read online, I think you just have to listen to that intuitive pull. And that's really guided me, even with my work ongoing now. If I hear about something multiple times, and it just so turned out that the practitioner that I was seeing, Dee, for my health stuff in Manchester, I was asking her, where did she study? And she was actually the director of studies for CNM Manchester at the time. So it was very serendipitous and just worked out perfectly. And a lot of people asked, and still do now, about how I found dealing with health issues on the course. And I just got through it. I was also working part-time, but I was also lucky to be living at home and not having to pay a mortgage and stuff. So that took the stress out of it. I can only imagine how difficult it would be, or challenging, we'll reframe, it would be to be doing the course, working full-time, and raising kids and struggling with health issues all at once. That is quite a lot, but I definitely had the fatigue, dizziness, inflammation, joint pain, food reactions. I would, on the weekends, so it was a Saturday and Sunday once a month, I would wake up like 2 hours before I had to set off so that I could have a proper morning routine, relax, because I would feel quite anxious and stressed throughout the day, just with answering questions or being put on the spot for certain things. I had some social anxiety at the time, so I'd make sure that I woke up and had a calming morning routine. I would take my lunch with me, so I'd make things like chicken and sweet potato and squash to take with me for my lunch, because I didn't want to eat leftovers because my histamine reactions were so bad. I'd have my breakfast, have time to digest it. So the days were really long. They were 10 till 6, but with traffic and everything, it was just, yeah, it'd take pretty much all day. And then the rest of the month, we were doing things like coursework. And in the final year, the final lecture, I think, was on business advice. And I was really excited for that, because up until then, it was just learning about health. But it really doesn't teach, I don't know if it's changed, but it really doesn't teach you about running a business properly. It was like, go here if you want to buy a website, or here's what you have to do kind of to get started. But it was just a day, and it's just not enough. And I really wish they'd emphasized that a little bit more. So, and I've since lectured for CNM as well on the women's health lecture. And I will say that I really enjoyed it, and I do recommend it. I'm actually an affiliate for the college, so I have a discount code that if someone signs up, you get money off, and I do get a commission from that as well. And I wouldn't do that like with anything if I didn't really believe in it. And I think the course overall is good, and it's very holistic, and it looks at all of these different factors, and it gives you a good basic knowledge. But pretty much everything else that I know about parasites and trauma and mold exposure and mineral balancing and organic acid urine testing, mitochondria, have come from additional research. I thought when I'd left that college, I knew everything, but then you realize you know nothing, and things are constantly evolving and changing. So go into it with that mindset that you're just getting the qualification from here, and it's good, and you'll know a lot of stuff, but you're not going to know everything. And especially if you want to do more work like I do on the root cause of things, they definitely didn't talk about things like mold in depth, or parasites in depth, or anything like that. And some of the nutrition advice was a little bit outdated when I went to lecture a few years ago for women's health. They were talking about the keto diet for PCOS and eating more vegan, plant-based diet if you have endometriosis, which I don't believe in. And I did tell the students in the room that you obviously have to learn what's on the presentation slides to pass the exams, but in clinical practice in real life, it doesn't always translate over. So that can be a little bit difficult. And I think a lot of doctors might feel the same. If they want to become a functional medicine doctor or more holistic doctor, they still have to go in the UK to medical school and then do extra work afterwards. So it's still holistic, but not as holistic as I personally would like. And I don't think the business advice or just the coaching and mindset for the client, you don't really get much advice on that. So if someone's really struggling to implement something, or they have trauma, or they have disordered eating patterns, you don't really learn about that too much. And I understand they can't cover everything in those 3 years. But those are just my little bits of feedback. Even after I qualified, so I graduated in, I think, September or October 2017. And there was an option for me to do clinical supervisor for another 100 hours of experience. And I decided to do that for the Manchester group again. They'd shifted locations at that point, and I didn't really like the location that they were in Manchester. But that was me then observing the students doing the clinics, or me being the practitioner for the year one, seeing a person and giving them the protocol, and the students were watching and learning from me then. So I'm glad that I did that, and then that allows you to then lecture for CNM, which I did do for a few years after I graduated, and maybe in the third year of college. I hosted some CPD events, so continuous professional development events that we have to do as practitioners. Every year we have to get so many hours of training and learning, whether it's in person or seminars or podcasts. We have to log that. And there was a company called ANP, the Association for Naturopathic Practitioners. It's like I don't know if it's like a governing body, but they have like different events going on, webinars online, and they were hosting some in Manchester at the college. So I would host that. I think it was every week or every month on like a Tuesday evening from 7 till 9ish. Someone would come in and do a talk, and I would like host them, and in exchange for a free ticket, obviously, and just more experience. I really did it just so I was going to watch it anyway, so I might as well just say a few words. But I remember being really nervous before that. I literally just said like, this is so and so, this is what they're talking about, and I was like literally shaking. But I was doing it for public speaking experience as well, because that was something that I really struggled with, and I think it helped. And then CNM asked me to do a workshop in Manchester a few years later. I can't remember the exact dates, maybe like 2018, I think, on skin health. So I did that somewhere near the town hall in Manchester, and that was about an hour. And yeah, if you were there, let me know, because that'll be really cool. I talked about all different things then. And then I have since lectured twice for CNM for the Women's Health lecture. And I've done some other things as well. I really like doing talks now. I actually like public speaking, which I never thought I'd say, but it really just come down to just keeping doing it, experience, even things like Instagram lives or just going on stories every day. It really is just a matter of practice, and you get used to it over time. And even when I'm like not on Instagram for a week and I go to story, it's a little bit awkward. So you just have to get into the swing of things. But I've also done talks at my local chiropractor's office. I've done wellness festivals, gyms, and I do enjoy, and it is a good way to reach more people. But if you're wanting to run an online business, it's not absolutely necessary. It can cross over. So if you're wanting to do a podcast, learning how to speak helps either way. But it's more if you have a clinical practice, it is good to get into the local community. But I like doing both. And I've always thought I wanted to do more stuff in the community, whether it's like workshops or whatever, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes. So throughout my studies, I worked part-time at a Sainsbury's store. I worked there since I was 17 or 18. And then for another almost 2 years after graduating in 2017. And for those 2 years, I was seeing some clients in person at a local acupuncturist clinic. So he specialized in fertility acupuncture and IVF support and had really good results. And I used to go to him just for general hormone balancing. That's like one of the main health things that I started off doing. And then he knew that I was studying. And when I graduated, I think I asked him, or maybe he asked me, did I want to see some of his clients and do some of the protocols for them? So he was doing the physical treatment, and then I was giving them some dietary advice and some supplements advice. And the first few people I didn't charge at all, and he was even saying like, you should be charging. I was like, no, I'm still a student. And now I realize, like, if someone's offering you the money, just take it, because yeah, you're making a difference to their life, and they're going to value it more if they are investing in that too. So I still see a few clients now actually who came to see me in person, some from the local areas. So this was in Leigh, and people from like Bolton area came to see, like Manchester, they'd travel down. And yeah, I'm still working with a few of them now, which is cool. But then even though the clinic was 5-minute walk from where I was, I just didn't like it. It's just weird because I had to get permission to use the room, and he was good because he just let me use it as and when. I wasn't stuck with a specific day of the week that I needed to be in there and pay him, and he charged me like £5 per session, which is really good. I wasn't in any contracts or anything, but I just thought like the travel time to get there, and if he overran with the client and the room was being used as a waiting room, and then one time I think he forgot the key or he turned up late, and then me and the client would have stood there waiting. And even just for efficiency, the client's traveling there, if there's traffic, it's so much better online, and I really do love it. And I think I've seen a few clients online then, and I always preferred that. But in 2019, I think it was summer 2019, I decided to make the leap and leave my Sainsbury's job. And I think at the same time, I decided to just do 100% online sessions, just because it was just so much easier then. And it definitely, when the pandemic and COVID hit in March 2020, I was like 100% online then. So I'd already had a bit of experience beforehand. And I was very hesitant to leave that job, because even though it was part-time, I was contracted to 16 hours, but I could be flexible and do more if needed, especially around the holiday times. They'd have me doing full-time, like around Christmas sometimes. But I was earning maybe £400 to £600 a month, which was like, I think it was more than what I was earning, or similar to what I was earning from my client sessions at the time. But I just felt, again, that pull to leave Sainsbury's, because I think it was affecting my health as well. Just being on my feet all day, I was really struggling with my health at that point. And for the years afterwards, I was rushed at meal times. I was dealing with like stressful customers who were just shouting in my face, and I was working till like 11 o'clock at night sometimes. So it wasn't good for my health, but I was getting that consistent paycheck every month, which was allowing me to get the nice food and the supplements and actually my treatment. So I took a bit of a risk, and I did have that safety net of my parents if I ever needed it, which was also good. But I actually saw massive increases in my income from doing that. So I actually didn't need my parents to support me at that point, because I think it, like, I can't remember exactly, but it massively increased. And I can even see it looking back over the years on my business statements and everything. That leap, actually, that money came back to me like probably tenfold, like 5 to 10-fold over time. So yeah, it just goes to show, if you trust your gut, and obviously you don't want to be stupid if you've got a mortgage to be paying for and you're in credit card debt. But if you're in a situation like me, sometimes just listening and making that jump, it actually motivates you to get outside your comfort zone a little bit, and the results can happen after that. And then since that point, I've done a few extra trainings. So always every year I did, especially in the first few years, I did a lot of in-person stuff. I traveled down to London. I've been to seminars with like Dr. Carrie Jones, Angela Heap, who's a friend and has been on here as well. They did a talk at the Gestational Journey Summit in London. I've been to ones on the microbiome. I've heard the owners of Microbiome Labs speak, Kieran Krishnan. And yeah, I was really invested, and I was just learning so much all the time. BioCare company would do a lot of in-person seminars, and I hosted a few of them with them. So I just like sign people in and have people come up if they had any questions, hand things out. So I did a lot of in-person stuff, a lot of training, a lot of webinars. I signed up to all different supplement companies, Pure Encapsulations, watched all of the webinars on the website. So that's where a lot of my additional knowledge has come from, that and podcasts and books. So finding people, I think back in the day, it was like Chris Kresser, those type of people, just really learning about functional medicine at the time. But then the big thing that I did was a lot of personal development work. I've really realized, I've heard it before, but running a business is like the biggest self-development journey you will ever go on. And the more that I invest and work on myself through my mindset, especially things like money mindset, being seen, fear of being judged, my business has improved as a result as well. because I could be learning all of these strategies and sales funnels and protocols for clients, but if I'm not telling people about my services, if I am not going on my stories, if I'm not doing podcasts, how is anyone going to find me? And if I have money mindset issues, which I definitely do, and I feel like a lot of women in particular have issues like this, because we're told like the man's going to save you and you just need to find like a rich husband and then you'll be fine. Or what if I make all of this money and then lose it and can't support myself? Like, what will people say? I've had to work on all of that stuff to be able to earn more and have that reflect all of the money that I've spent. So I've spent probably hundreds of thousands on my training, my health, lab tests, supplements, figuring it all out, being my own guinea pig, healing myself. And all of that knowledge is then what I pass on to clients in a much more condensed and personalized way. They're not just paying me for my time that hour, they're paying me for the past few years, my clinical experience, my knowledge, my trainings, all of that. They're investing in themselves to get that knowledge from me. So in the business lecture from CNM, the college, it was really just like charge £50 an hour or average what other people do, and yeah, just get more customers through the door. And even the acupuncturist guy and my family, like my mum and dad, they were saying just, oh, isn't that a bit too much when I put my prices up to like £100? They were like, oh, like, are you sure about that? Are people going to buy? And yes, they did. And I knew that I was just going to burn myself out. And throughout this whole journey, my number one priority has been my health. I would never risk my health again. Not that work triggered it in the first place, it was for other reasons, but I knew that anytime I'd be stressed or if I was working late on a project till midnight, that wasn't actually going to be productive or a good thing for me. So I've always put my health first, and if I've ever felt like I'm pushing too much, I will back off, because I know how valuable that is, and I know if I don't take care of myself, my business won't be successful, I won't thrive, and my clients aren't going to get good results either. Whereas if I fill up my own cup, if I get regular massages, if I go to the gym, if I eat good quality food, my brain is going to be clearer. I'm going to be able to focus on the session. I'm not going to be forgetting things all the time. I'm going to be more tapped into my intuition and have clearer messages come through. And yeah, everyone benefits as a result. So yes, my prices have increased over the years, and I would say you should have that too. It should reflect your experience. It should reflect the trainings that you've done, and also the value of the transformation. So it's not like other industries where you're charging training time for hours. So like, oh, is this senior for an hour, so that's £50? That's not going to work in this type of career where you're giving your energy. And you think of someone who gets rid of their lifelong bloating, they would pay any number to get that fixed. So it obviously has to be, this was one of the questions I get, like how to price things properly. It obviously has to be a stretch for the customer or the client. But for you, it also has to reflect what your value is and the value of the transformation that the person's going to get, not just how long you're on the call with them for. Just forget about you, like think about what you're offering them. And you can, by all means, have a look at what other similar people in your industry are charging, and it's going to increase over time. You can't go out charging hundreds or thousands of pounds for an hour of your time, but you want it to be something that you're happy with, a push for the customer or the client, because that is going to get them results as well. It's going to make sure they're invested and they're stepping outside of their comfort zone a little bit. But I always have realized, whether I'm charging £50 per hour or £500 per hour, there's always going to be people happy to pay. There's always going to be people who aren't willing to. They think it's too expensive. So you're going to get setbacks and questions about it, whatever you're charging. So it just has to be something that you're comfortable with. Obviously not an extortionate amount. It should be something that you honestly like feel that product or service is worth. But yeah, it's just a little bit on the pricing, and you do get more comfortable with it over time. And anytime I've put my prices up, I've always felt like, oh, should I be doing this? And then I'm like, I make a list of what the person is getting out of this and how it's literally going to change their life to have someone fast track their healing. And It's going to save them probably decades of going down the NHS route with the health problems and getting no answers. And even the difference between two practitioners, maybe two people who studied at the college that I studied at, it was a little bit annoying to me because I really excelled and tried my absolute best with all of the exams and everything. And I know other people in my class were like copying or cheating or just weren't that interested in everything, but we both left with the same qualification. So to me, that's a little bit annoying. But I just had to kind of get over that and just think like people are eventually going to find out. And yeah, if you look at what some of those people are now with the business, it's not comparable. So you just have to stay in your own lane, do the best that you can. But yeah, just know out there, even if you've been to a practitioner before, there can be a different range of different caliber of practitioner, even if they both have the same qualification. So let me see what other questions I had from Instagram. Oh, I was going to say as well, after the personal development stuff that I've done, the CPD events, all of that, I've done a couple of other courses as well, along with the self-development, personal development work. That's been a huge factor. I did a mineral training course. So that's how I learned to interpret the HTMA test, which is the hair tissue mineral analysis. I did that course maybe in 2019, maybe 2019, 2018. And now I run my mineral course. So I took that information and my years of clinical experience now and made it a course that allows the average person to get a test, balance their minerals naturally. But also if you're a practitioner or student and you want to understand the mineral test, you don't get any sort of certification afterwards, but you are trained and skilled to understand that report. I ran that earlier this year and it's going to be opening again for enrollment maybe July, August time in 2023. And there's a wait list on my website. If you want to sign up to that, I would recommend. You'll be first to know when the next round is out. And then I've done another course on running a business. So it was a feminine business course, just learning about how to not like hustle too hard and wreck your hormones in the process, how to do things a little bit slower. There was some useful things in there, not like life-changing. I knew a lot of it already, but it is good to have mentors and containers that you're in and be constantly learning. That's something that I really think has helped with my success, is constantly being just a learner in life and never thinking that you know too much or that you know everything, and getting in these containers with people who are doing what you want to do or have been there. Go to them and ask them and find out how they got to where they are instead of trying to figure it out all on your own. I could have saved so much time if I would have invested in some of these coaches and programs early, even with my health stuff, instead of trying to do it all on my own. That's why I decided to just become a practitioner, because I just wasn't getting the support that I needed. And I knew that this stuff was so powerful and I wanted to teach other people. So they were the two main courses that I have done. And then lots of other free stuff, lots and lots of podcasts and books. So in the question section, someone asked that in the USA, so I think they've heard me talk about CNM before. I think CNM is now available in other countries if you do the online version. So definitely check that if you're interested. But then I know in the US you have different titles for things. You don't really have naturopathic nutritionist over there. You guys have naturopathic doctors, which we don't have in the UK. But out of the ones that I've seen, I think the NTA, the Nutritional Therapy Association practitioner, and the FDN, Functional Diagnostic Nutrition Practitioner, are two that I would probably resonate most with. And a few colleagues I know have been through those courses and they work in similar ways to me. So maybe look into those two, but I've not done them personally, so I can't give major feedback or advice. And then I have heard of one called IIN, the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. And I think that was just coming out around the time that I was looking to study, but I didn't look into it too much. But it seems like you just learn a lot about different types of diets, things like fasting and veganism and keto and macrobiotic diets, instead of really looking at the root cause and being able to order lab tests and stuff. Again, it might have changed, but I wasn't massively drawn to that. And I just think it's a really heavily marketed certification. And I don't know if it's that great, but I'm not sure. If you have had experience and you love it, please let me know. Next question is, what's the main way that you get clients? So I would say the podcast is a big one. So I started that, when was that? Maybe a year or so after I graduated, maybe 2018. Yeah, may have been 2018. That's a huge one. So I've done so many expert guest interviews, so many solo episodes, and the consistency is really important with the podcast. I think I had weekly episodes for about 3 years, and then I had a year break in 2022, and then I brought it back this year. And again, it's every Monday you can expect an episode. I think that has really helped, just having you in someone's ears for at least an hour instead of just scrolling past some stories on Instagram, or be able to really educate someone on a deep subject from a few Instagram posts. It's just not the same. And Instagram posts can get lost in the algorithm, or after it's been through the top level of the grid, you've pretty much missed it. And you can repurpose that content, but with things like podcasts, I put mine on YouTube as well. And if someone searches PCOS and like gut health and things like that, they can more easily find the episode from years ago. Some people are still commenting and sharing episodes that I did in 2020 because they're useful information. And when you have guests on, they share your podcast with their audience as well. So it's a good way to get more visibility, and the more likes and comments and subscribes that you get as well, it really does help. And this is your reminder, if you've not left me a 5-star review, please do. And then social media, definitely as well. And there's a few more different options available now. Really, it was just Instagram back when I started, but then there's things like Pinterest and TikTok that have taken off, and you don't want to try and master them all, just stick to one. Facebook, for example, if you're just starting now, I don't really think that unless your audience is more in that older generation, they might be on Facebook a little bit more, but the people that I work with tend to not be. So being on social media and trying to show your face and showing behind the scenes of things and letting them get to know you a little bit, and definitely educate them, but just tell stories as well and show more about your life and what you're eating for dinner, and build that like, know and trust factor, which is key for when you do then promote something or come to sell something. It's not just that you're constantly sell all the time. And if you are struggling with something, be vulnerable. You might want to wait until you're over the worst of it, just so you can get some clarity. Sometimes I do that. I go through something and I need to understand it a little bit before I share, but I always share about my struggles, and it doesn't put people off. If anything, it draws people closer to you because they feel like they can resonate and connect with you. Not that you're this like goddess on a pedestal that never gets any health issues, has never struggled. They're not really going to vibe with you as much. So you obviously don't want to be crying on your stories every day and in this victim mentality. But if you are like, last week I had a really tough time, like my skin was breaking out, or my digestive issues were coming back a little bit, but I figured it out, here's what I did, that's really going to help someone feel more connected to you. And always focus on education and give your best tips and information for free. And then people are going to be like, wow, if she's sharing all of this stuff for free, like what am I going to get inside of her paid containers? Next question is, I kind of answered this before. So tips on being a health practitioner if you have struggles of your own. So just know that most of us have health issues or have had health issues. That's why we get into it in the first place. And just be honest. Like I just said, let people know what you're working on. And remember that you only have to be a few steps ahead of someone to help them. So you don't have to know everything about the condition or be completely healed, because that's not even possible. To be in perfect health, it's a constant work in progress. There's always things to be working on. Even with myself, I'm in so much of a better state than I was, but it's not like I can stop doing everything. I'm always working on the next things. I get regular blood tests and lab tests every year to keep on top of it, but you don't need to be the master of everything. You just have to know a few more things than they do. And a lot of the time it comes back to the basics, just reminding people and working on that mindset with them as well is a big thing. So just know that you can still have a successful business if you're struggling. But also it could be that you should actually focus on yourself for a little while before. If you really can't function, you're struggling with fatigue, actually setting up a business and giving your energy all day long to someone else could just be a bit too much at the moment. So if you give yourself a few months off to really build yourself back up, if you can manage this financially, or if you even get a little part-time job that takes no brain power at all, then that could give you the space to build yourself up a little bit, and then you can come back a little bit stronger and help others. But it just depends on the situation. Someone asked, what certifications do you recommend that are actually beneficial to do? And do you think it's always necessary to become a health practitioner? She said there's a lot of mainstream certifications that don't teach or come from a place that actually help with things like the root cause. That's the thing. I'm not an expert in this area because I haven't looked into it for a while. I'm just sharing what I did. But I agree that there's a lot of these certification these days, but you just have to do something that you resonate with. And if you hear about something and they're talking about something that you have been looking into, just listen, pay attention, don't jump into something straight away. Like, research the person. Where did they study? What are they teaching? But the reason I decided to go to somewhere like CNM is because it's a very like established college. It's won all of these different awards. And at the end of it, I will be a registered nutritional therapy practitioner. I'm under a governing body called BANT, the British Association of Nutritional Therapists, sorry. So I just felt a little bit more protected with that, because as it is, the nutritionist title is a little bit like confusing, a little bit all over the place, but it maybe is changing. But especially like the health coach thing, you have to be mindful as well that that's not going to be totally recognized, and it's that whole thing again of quality. There might be two health coaches, one of them is like really knows this stuff and is looking at the root cause stuff, but you might be put under that same category as someone who's literally just done like a 2-week online like food plan training. So yeah, I would say like do your research. You can still help people even without the qualification, but I don't know if I'd recommend that, honestly. I think get the certification of some kind and then do more of that research, because I don't know now of like a course that offers everything, like looking at parasites and root cause and all of that, unfortunately. How to get started. Someone asked, I think you did basically just do it, and that's something that I did in 2017. I knew as soon as I qualified, I wanted to start practicing. Some people were having a year off, having a few months break, and I just thought, if I'm not going to do it now, I probably never will, and I'll just procrastinate forever. So I just get started on my website, and I'd already been doing a bit of blogging and social media while studying. So if you can do that, that'll be good as well, just to build yourself up so that by the time you qualify, you have people ready waiting to sign up from you. That can always be good. But don't look into like your logo or your brand colors or anything like that too much, because it really isn't relevant. You just have to start teaching and educating and sharing your knowledge with people and asking them to work with you, even if you have to do a few free sessions just to get some testimonials out there. And you don't have to do a full-blown website. You can just have a landing page or a Facebook page or something like that, or an Instagram profile with a calendar attached to it that people can book in. But then I still think it's useful having a website, especially if you've got things like blog posts. You can put them all in one place and have an about me section, all of that, but it's not necessary for everything to be absolutely perfect. I built my first website on my own, and that I only changed that last year, I think, or the year before, to get someone to do it professionally, because I was changing my software and everything. So don't overthink it, just get started. You can learn as you go, and you're never going to know it all. So you can try and learn things on your own. I did a lot of things through YouTube, just spending all day just trying to figure it out, when if you've got the money to, outsourcing can be really helpful. Anything more? Someone asked, is there any short courses? I don't know any off the top of my head, apart from CNM do a few short courses, but you could always do the CNM full-time one or another full-time course for the certification instead of dragging it out over 3 years like I did. What's the most difficult part? This is a final question of running a business. I miss having in-person colleagues. And over the past few years, I had made a few more connections that I know there's practitioners nearby now. I can meet up with them. We can have like a Zoom session and chatting to people all day long with my clients and doing podcasts. But actually having a group in person, like when I worked at Sainsbury's, I had a few friends that worked there and it was just fun. Like the job was mind-numbingly boring. But yeah, it's nice having a little community. But I've tried to make that a thing on the online space as well. Like I have a client community now, and I'm trying to make that more of a thing. We have like these group coaching calls on a quarterly basis, and I'm just trying to connect them together because it can be a little bit isolating when you're on a health journey, and also when you have a business and you work from home on your own and it's just you don't have a business partner or anything like that. And I have to make that conscious effort to get out of the house, because some days in the past I've just spent all day inside and then I wonder why I'm feeling like I'm going crazy, or I feel really stressed and anxious and have no energy. So I have time to go for a walk, go to the gym, and if there are any seminars and things in person, I'll go to them if they're local. But it's also more convenient to do some things online. So I have a pretty good balance now. So that's a difficult thing, but also the self-motivation. You don't have anyone telling you what to do day to day, so you have to make sure that you are getting things done, because at the end of the day, like, it's your responsibility to have a plan and have things that you're working on. So I can struggle with that sometimes, just knowing that there's like a million things that I could be doing, but not knowing exactly which one to do now, or not knowing when to stop in the day. Like you could just be working forever, or you could just be like, oh, I can do that tomorrow, or it's sunny outside, so let me just go out and sunbathe all afternoon. There's a fine line that I'm still working on, and also wearing all of the different hats in the business as well. Especially in the beginning, I was like my website designer and my social media person and my accountant and I was the practitioner. I was writing all the protocols. I was doing all my emails. I was just everything. And it can be a lot and it can be a little bit overwhelming. But I did everything in the beginning, and it's good to know and understand certain things, like how to move an image on your website, just in case it all goes wrong one day and no one's there to help you. But then with the podcast even, I just outsourced that to Kira, who's editing this now. She does an amazing job, and that's just something that I could not fit into my schedule anymore. And at the time I was like, oh, is this going to be a good decision? Can I let go of it? Because I do have some controlling tendencies. But after doing that, I'm like, I could never, like, how did I even do that before? Like, I just couldn't take that back on as a task anymore. And yeah, I want to do the same thing eventually with like email stuff and helping with creating courses. It's just, as your business gets bigger, you have to outsource for it to be able to grow. But even the hiring process, the training process, it does take time. And I can attest to the statement that people say, you want to do it before you're desperate. You want to do it when things are going okay. Because if you're desperate, it's just going to be a nightmare to hire someone, train them. And then if it's not a good fit, like, that's a whole thing. So I think that is everything for now. It's been quite a long episode, and I will happily do a part 2, part 3 if you need that. But I hope you find that useful. Sorry if some things were a little bit up in there, like I can't give you a specific answer. And at the end of the day, it's your life. You have to do the research as well. But I hope you found my experience useful. I am, like I said, an affiliate for CNM. So if you want to sign up after hearing what I said, so many of my clients and people on social media have signed up because they know that I've studied there and they're enjoying it. Can be a little bit challenging, but yeah, they just have taken that intuitive hit again, and they have followed the gut feeling. So yeah, if you're a student listening and you've been a client, then good on you for following your intuition. And that's exactly how I got into this as well. I was the student and then I became the practitioner afterwards. And I'm currently still offering mentoring sessions. So if you're a student, you want to learn more about setting up your practice after graduating, or you're a new practitioner or an experienced practitioner, you want to learn about certain areas a little bit more, then I do offer mentoring sessions, just one-off ones if you need them. I record them. You can ask your questions directly to me. So let me know if you're interested in that. Just send me a DM on Instagram or an email. And my mineral course I said it before, is opening again July, August this year. If you are a student practitioner, you want to learn more about HTMA and mineral balancing, then that could also be a good option for you as well. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Again, a bit of a different one, but I can finally release this and answer your questions that you guys have been asking for quite a long time. So enjoy the rest of your day wherever you're at. And yeah, excited to join you back here next week for another episode. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, I would love for you to leave me a rating and review on your podcast app, as this helps to support the show and it allows it to reach more people with this valuable information. Come and say hi over on Instagram. I'm at Viva Natural Health. And if you haven't already, check out my website, vivanaturalhealth.co.uk, for tons more free resources and to discover how I could support you further. I currently offer one-on-one consultation packages if you want my top level support, then more affordable group programs and self-paced online courses. So there really is something for everyone. If you're ready to change and get some answers but aren't sure which option would be best, take that first step today and apply for a free enrollment call on my website, and we'll discuss the best steps for you to take in order to achieve hormonal harmony. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you back here next week for another episode.